Hello, I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com. With us, a regular guest here on USA Watchdog, Gregory Mannarino. Hello, Greg. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Greg. Thank you so much for having me.
I know you're the former floor trader at Bear Stearns. You act as a consultant to some people, and you're still in the medical field for the time being. You have your very popular YouTube channel, which has more than 1.5 million views on the YouTube channel. I understand your GregoryMannarino.com is down for just technical reasons for right now, right?
That's right. Hopefully it'll be back soon.
I know some people have called me and said, "Oh, his channel's gone. What's wrong?" I think it's just a technical problem, nothing nefarious, correct?
Yep. We're just trying to set it up.
Okay, super duper. Let's get that piece of business out of the way. Well, you actually on your side give trading advice. I don't, because I'm not a former floor trader, but you do give nice instruction and insight on your channel all the time. And let's talk about the trifecta: gold, silver, crude. What's going on well, add one more, the dollar, but the gold, silver, crude, what's going on in those markets from, a trading analysis point of view?
It's pretty straightforward here, Greg. We have pretty basically a madman that's running the Federal Reserve, and what we can count on is him destroying the dollar, and it's not going to end, despite the fact that just the other day we had heard from some of the Fed members that they were thinking about ending QE. It'll never end. We understand that it's impossible. If they were to do that overnight, the system would collapse. This is the sole thing that is funding the United States of America, and in many ways keeping the global economy going. They can't stop. I think what they did the other day, and this was very interesting, was they deliberately put out those minutes with the suggestion that there might be an ending to this open-ended QE, and that did affect the price of gold and silver. They cannot allow gold and silver to rise. At one point, it will be the free market that dictates fair market value for not just gold, silver, crude, the U.S. dollar, but everything. And they're in desperation mode, Greg. We know this. And I think that was an act of desperation to put that out in the minutes, to smack down the prices of gold and silver. Now, we're talking about the paper market here. And personally, I love it. Every single time that they do this, you know what I'm doing, Greg. I'm out there buying more of this stuff.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because at the beginning of the year, the reports are record amounts of silver eagles sold in the first few days of the year, almost like 4 million 1-ounce silver eagle coins. I think likewise, with gold, I don't know exactly what that number, but record or near record sales of U.S. gold eagle coins. And I was telling a friend of mine, I said, this isn't people going down to Stacks in New York City or to Bob's Coin Store in Austin or wherever. And those are all fine places. But this isn't people going and going, I'd like to have 2 gold eagles and I'd like to have 10 silver. This isn't that. These are people buying gold by the roll and buy 20 ounces in a roll and buy the monster box with 500. Now, these are people buying it by the case. These are big, it must be big buys in gold and silver eagles. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And let me show you why. I made some charts for you.
Okay.
I'm gonna. This is why. First of all, let me just say this. I hate this chart. This is a chart of the U.S. dollar, Greg, going back to 2002. And I've been over the fact that I believe the dollar is in a terminal phase. It will not recover. I mean, of course, we're going to have little bumps up and down, but this is what it looks like. This is what the dollar has done.
That's going back. So the top up there is a U.S. dollar index at 120 or something like that.
Exactly.
And the other side is around to what, 80 or 79?
That's exactly right, just about 80. And look at this trend, Greg. And as you can see, the dollar is done, in my opinion. And I hate to have to say that. I mean, I'm an American citizen here, and it's just awful what our policymakers are doing. Now, what does that mean for everything else? Well, let's have a look at gold. Same time frame, Greg. This is 2002 till today. Now look at that. Where
Wow.
would you rather have your wealth? In paper? I don't think so. How about this? This is silver, same time period. Okay, screaming uptrend, and this is crude oil. This is not going to stop. Right? None of this. In fact, I believe this is going to accelerate as we move forward. We know for a fact that the Fed cannot and will not stop printing. As a matter of fact, I would be willing to bet they're going to print more. This QE will never end. It cannot end. It's an impossibility at this time. And this is why we're seeing extreme price increases across the board in commodities. This is going to get worse, much, much worse for people. Their cost of living is going to go up. Our governments are going to institute more and more punishment on us through taxation and every other conceivable means. And they're going to spin it every way they can. But the fact of the matter remains is cash is going out of style. I've been saying this for an extremely long period of time. I've been urging anyone who will listen to become their own central bank. Get out of this fiat, debt-based monetary system. Get yourself into real assets, gold and silver more specifically, silver even more specifically, Greg, because I believe sincerely, and I've been doing this a very long time, that silver, physical silver, is the most undervalued asset in the history of the world.
What do you say to people? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sorry. What do you say to people who say, well, the last couple of years, look at 2010, 2011, 2012, it's really about $30, $32, $33 an ounce. What do you say to people that, feel, duped that they somehow bought silver?
Oh, absolutely. Because people have to think of the big. First of all, it goes back to what I just said. We have to keep our eye on the ball here. There's a currency war going on a global level. There is a war against the U.S. dollar. The Federal Reserve is running the biggest Ponzi scheme in the history of the world, the biggest conflict of interest in the history of the world, and it's killing the dollar. So forget about
explain the Ponzi scheme and conflict of interest, so somebody as dumb as me can figure that out.
Sure. The Ponzi scheme is this: they print this money out of thin air, they disperse it out worldwide. As soon as it leaves the Fed, it starts to acquire interest that's paid with more money printed out of thin air. That's a Ponzi scheme in the most basic of form. Now, their conflict of interest is the more of this funny money that all of the central banks print, well, the higher commodities are going to go, and specifically gold and silver. So that's the conflict of interest. They're hoarding this stuff. We know this. This is a fact. Central banks of the world are purchasing gold and now silver in record numbers. Meanwhile, they're flooding the world with fiat money. And so there's the conflict. The more of this stuff they print, the higher the value of their assets go. So that's why it's so important for people to become their own central bank. It's kind of been my theme since I started this, Greg. And it's just so important to understand that.
Hey, I think the fiscal cliff, the next thing is the debt ceiling. The Democrats want $1 trillion in new revenue, which is confiscation. And the Republicans want to make big cuts. And they're going to say, hey, you got your revenue, you got the tax portion done, now it's time for cuts. And they don't want to do it. And the Republicans are going to hold the debt ceiling over the Democrats' head. And I don't see how either side can sit there and look at the numbers and say, oh, yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, we're going to come out of this, no problem. Now, what do you say about this next couple of months where they're fighting over, increasing the debt ceiling? Some people say $2 trillion, maybe more. It's not going to be $1 trillion. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Well, let me just say this first of all. We had President Obama, who went on national television, global television, saying, I will not, argue this. This is how it's going to be. We're going to raise the debt ceiling, whatever. He doesn't want to pay his bills, Greg. That's the fact. He's saying that we have to pay these bills. In order to pay these bills, we should not be raising the debt ceiling. We should be cutting spending. But by raising the debt ceiling, he's just borrowing from his MasterCard to pay his Visa. That's all this is, Greg. We all know this. This scheme is simply this. we have an economy that is run by the relentless acquisition of debt. Once debt can no longer be accrued, once we admit that, we have a crisis like we had in Europe. And the mother of them all is happening here in the United States, and that plays into what we're seeing right now in the news.
You're talking about the mother of all debt crisis is unfolding right here in front of our very eyes.
Right in front of our eyes, and we can see it now. Look at what's happening to our society. We're seeing more and more. We have more and more violence break out all over the country. People are becoming desperate. This is the stages of the collapse. This is the beginning, Greg. People say, oh, look at all the violence that's going on. Have you ever seen this before in your lifetime like we're seeing now? Of course not. Because this is the march towards the collapse. The collapse is coming. The collapse of currency is coming. Money is dying. It's going out of style. And that's why they're printing it like this. And this is why Obama wants to raise the debt ceiling into infinity, because he needs to keep borrowing money into existence. If they don't borrow that money into existence, the moment that stops, it's over. So forget about balancing a budget. Forget about anything. This is all a farce. It's smoke and mirrors. They understand this. Believe me, our policymakers know exactly what I'm talking about. Once we cannot accrue any more debt, it's party over. And then what's going to happen? Well, we're going to have austerity across the board. We're going to have a social unrest like we're seeing now, amplified hundreds of times. I believe we're marching into civil war here in the United States, and our government is aware of this, Greg. This is why the police are being militarized in every state in the union. This is why drones are going to be, or maybe are, patrolling the skies of the United States. They're ready for this. They understand what's going to happen. We've never seen anything like this in the history of the world, and people need to be ready, and they need to become their own central bank. Acquiring gold and silver is the best way to do that, Greg.
My last rhetorical question. I wish that some reporter, when they have Bernanke in front of them, that they'd raise their hand and say, hey, Chairman Bernanke, what would happen if we stopped printing the $40 billion a month to buy the mistakes and fraud of bankers and mortgage-backed securities, and stop the $45 billion a month? What would happen if we stopped $85 billion a month in buying treasuries and banker fraud? What do you suppose would happen, Chairman Bernanke? What would happen if we just stopped doing it?
You know, I can only imagine what would come out of that man's mouth, but the plain fact is this. It's over. It would be over. The free market would once again be allowed to do its job, Greg. That is what's going on here. That's all this is. This is a scheme to steal away the free market, and it won't work. At one point, it will be, and this is the fact, it has to be. The free market will once again dictate fair market value for interest rates, for stocks, for metals, for commodities across the board, and he's continuing to manipulate this. You see, there's so much other stuff going on here too. All of this money that's being printed out of thin air is allowing the investment banks and the people on Wall Street to speculate with it. This is no secret. Everyone knows this is going on here. They're speculating with this money for free. They're getting this money for nothing, and they're speculating with it. That's what's driving the market. And what are they going to do? These same people, Greg, when they see this all roll over, they're going to short it all. And they're going to make money on both ends of the trade. The amount of wealth that is going to be created when this thing collapses is going to be unbelievable, and it's going to leave the middle class desperate, destitute, and completely wiped out, Greg. We're going to a two-tier society. That is the writing on the wall, and people really should start to wake up to that fact and start to position themselves to take advantage of this whole thing. Put yourself in the same spot that they are, and you'll be okay. If you do not, you're in a lot of trouble. I've said this many times. What it reminds me of, Greg, is a freight train that's coming right at me, with a light on my head. And what you and I are trying desperately to do is get people to sidestep that freight train.
Yeah.
And I think that I think we're doing a good service here. I really do, Greg. I think that you and I are being honorable in what we are doing, honestly.
Gregory Mannarino, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com and sharing your macro analysis with us. We all really appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. It's glad to be here. Thank you.